All right, and now talking about the New York Giants waiver claims, because they made 4 of those. We knew kind of going into the waiver wire because they had a high priority that they were going to address that. I don't know how many like really great players are on the waiver wire, but no standout names. I don't know why there would be, but they did sign 4 guys: a guard, offensive guard Jack Anderson, cornerback Justin Layne, cornerback Nick McCloud, and safety Jason Pinnock. Pinnock. I'm gonna go
Pinnock. Yeah.
I don't know if the O is like silent or not though, because that's like an I. Pinnock. Anyway, the Giants address, the 2 probably weakest positions that we talked about depth-wise, Alex, last episode being offensive line or cornerback. I don't even know if it's last episode. We talked about it a lot, that the 2 weakest positions for the Giants, cornerback and offensive line when it comes to depth. So they addressed those there, and they had 3 unsuccessful waiver claims that you added in here. I didn't even see this. Defensive end Kingsley Jonathan, who was a former Bill, defensive end Daryl Johnson, who was also a Bill, and running back JaMycal Hasty, who was on the 49ers. You see a little pattern there? A little bit. Little bit. Wonder why that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly so the Giants, if you look at it, made 7 waiver claims. They got 4 of them, but they made 7 waiver claims. JaMycal Hasty, I know, ended up with the Jaguars. We're not sure where Daryl Johnson and Kingsley Jonathan ended up, but JaMycal Hasty ends up with the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. But obviously, they have the number 1 order claim, I guess, right? They're number 1 in the claim order. But certainly some really nice pieces that were brought in, I think, not earth-shattering, but certainly some nice pieces. But I think you got to notice something. You mentioned 2 of the weak positions. But I think besides corner, the second weakest position is tight end, and the Giants didn't address it one bit in waivers. They didn't even attempt to sign someone in waivers at tight end. So really interesting to see what they do at that position. I can't imagine they're done with that position in terms of adding more depth and quality to that group. We'll have to see, but certainly an interesting thing there. Let's get into the 4 guys who did end up joining the Giants. So first, let's talk about guard Jack Anderson. He was cut by the Eagles on Tuesday. He's only 23 years old. He has the flexibility to play all 3 interior spots, So that's definitely something that Brian Daboll in his press conference actually even mentioned about why he liked Anderson. So certainly something to think about. But he was selected by the Bills. Does anyone notice that? No, the Bills again. Little funny coincidence there. In the 2021 NFL draft at 236th overall, and spent a month on the practice squad before signing with the Eagles. He saw action in 2 games last season, starting the season finale against the Cowboys. Here's something interesting. He was drafted by Joe Shane when he was assistant GM in Buffalo, and then he was then picked up by the Eagles, whose assistant GM was, or director of player personnel, whatever he was. Oh my God, what's his name? From the Eagles. I just blanked.
Who are you thinking of?
The assistant GM, Brandon Brown. He was He was then selected by Brandon Brown, brought into the Eagles. So both the GM and assistant GM of the Giants currently had a part in bringing him through as he started his career in the NFL. So certainly something to think about there. And I think he's going to be a really good addition as depth for this offensive line.
Sorry, Alex. When you brought up the tight end, the Giants addressing the tight end, it put me on a little loop here, and I was like, I was now searching the web for that. Sorry, I wasn't able to help out. Eric Ebron, the Giants gave him a tryout a couple months ago now. He's still available. The top guy, it seems like, on list when it comes to tight ends available. So just a little name to throw out there again. We'll have to see if they address the position like you mentioned. The next guy on the list here, cornerback Justin Layne, was cut by the Steelers, 24 years old, in 3 years with Pittsburgh. Layne never started a game, but he did appear in 43 games. Did not get a single defensive snap in his rookie season with 93 plays on special teams in 10 games, so a special teamer. 2020 saw the most usage out of Layne with 117 snaps on defense, 261 on special teams, and then in 2021, only saw 28 defensive snaps along with 245 on special teams. So basically, in all, Layne had 1 fumble recovery, 41 combined tackles, no passes defended in 3 seasons with Pittsburgh. He was credited with giving up 1 touchdown in 2020. And then are we flip-flopping every time?
We're flip-flopping, man.
All right.
Another DB here, Nick McCloud, was cut by the Bills. Again, the Bills. He's only 24 years old, so he's certainly starting his career, still young and developing. He can play corner or safety. He's 6 foot, 193 pounds, went undrafted out of Notre Dame. Notre Dame, obviously, a highly thought of school in terms of college prospects. Before signing with the Bills in 2021, a special mix of size and speed. He ran a 4.37 40-yard dash during his pro day, so relatively quick for a guy his size. After he failed to make the active roster last season, the Cincinnati Bengals signed him to their active roster. So McLeod, certainly a promising player. We'll see how he does, and definitely some nice depth there. Again, in addition to Layne at the cornerback position.
Yeah, when I was doing a little bit of research on the 24-year-old defensive back, McLeod actually stands out more in the safety position. I was reading that that's kind of where he shines, but he's only been used really in cornerback when it comes to the NFL. In college, it seemed like he was more of a safety, so we'll have to see if the Giants use that. Although this Jefferson signing, I don't think so. But if they do use him, I would think it's at cornerback because that's just where the lack of depth is for the Giants. Although maybe he shines at safety here and there. We'll have to see throughout the season. Another safety they signed, Jason Pinnock. I'm saying Pinnock. I don't know if it's right. He was cut by the Jets, 23 years old, selected by the Jets in the 5th round of last year's draft. Then he was signed by the Jets, was then waived by the Jets this offseason, so basically had 1 season with them. After the preseason roster cuts. As a rookie, played 12 games with 2 starts, registered 13 tackles, 8 of them being solo tackles. He had 1 pass defended and 1 forced fumble. This preseason, Pinnock had 2 solo tackles, and including 1 against the Giants this past Sunday. So don't really remember him on the field. I went to the game, don't really remember seeing him, but now I will pay attention a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly is the most promising of or at least the, biggest name in terms of what he's done in the NFL out of all of the players we picked up here out of these 4. So certainly excited to see what he can do on the field. This guy definitely hasn't officially signed yet, but he could possibly sign. He wouldn't be an official waiver claim, but he could be another addition. Former Lions wide receiver and Hard Knocks star, in case anyone watches the show. Khalil Pimpleton, I believe it is juggling teams. He's on his way to visit the Giants. The 23-year-old, this was yesterday, by the way. So the 23-year-old Pimpleton, he played his college ball at Central Michigan after transferring from Virginia, caught the eye of many for his juggling ability and arguably oversized pads. However, his play on the field wasn't quite as consistent as his juggling, which led to the Lions releasing him as a part of their final cuts. In 3 preseason games, Pimpleton hauled in 9 receptions for 69 yards and 4 first downs and had 1 kick return for 30 yards, but he also made at least 1 glaring drop. That's from Giants Wire there. He definitely is more going to be a special teamer in terms of what he can do in the kicking game as a return man, so I think that brings added value. We do have 7 wide receivers already. We'll see what happens. He had his visit yesterday, and we'll see if Joe Shane and company really liked him and want to add him on to the roster.